Okay, so here's another piece of writing I did, I can't remember when. Just check. I didn't even write, it was like a week ago or something. I think I mentioned it in one of my videos, but it's pretty long, so I might have to split it up into a few parts. And I don't know how coherent it is, but anyway, I'll read it. I have really just understood something. I understand that we are the universe. We are the universe with a voice. We are a part of it. Scientifically speaking, we are an organism. An organism which has evolved through time within the universe alongside everything other. The concept of the other is an illusory concept. There is no other. We are all one. We are all from the same stuff and a part of the same process, which we have learned to call existence. All the birds, the insects, the mountains, volcanoes and clouds, from the deepest depths of the ocean to the stars in outer space. We are all just an occurrence, something which is happening, all at the same time. And yet for some reason we think we are separate. The egoic mind leads us to believe this. Our mind is a great tool at helping us interpret the occurrence of existence, but as it watches and interprets reality, it is really just observing itself as it is just another happening. But we forget this. The egoic mind, like I can't read my writing. The egoic mind likes to think we are separate because we are the observer, but we observe it no more than it observes us. It is us and we are it. We don't need to strive for anything to become happier. We don't need to change anything at all. But how can this be? It seems impossible. Well, this is because we have been taught to do these things. Religion spit dogma down our throats, slowly indoctrinating our already perfect minds. Our parents push us to do things and be that, to do this and be that, as if what we already are isn't good enough. Society shapes our behaviour so we can function in an illusory microcosm of the bigger picture, which is simply existence. Existence is essentially all there is to be certain. Everything else is just a social construct created and perceived within the human mind. We overanalyze things and start to create difference. There is no difference. It is a word which we created, meaning a point or way in which people or things are dissimilar. The word was created after existence. Existence has always been here. It can't not have been, because nothing can come from nothing, so there must have always been something. Nothing has never existed. So in reality, is reality infinite, or was there a beginning on? Don't know what that says. Was there a beginning on something? There will be an end. I guess this. Oh, and there will be an end. I guess this is where people's ideas of God came into play. If there was at one point nothing, which seems impossible, but hypothetically speaking, and there is now something, what started the something? There must have been a catalyst which somehow set it all off. Something which operated outside of the laws of our universe. Perhaps a god, the unmoved mover, a powerful being who didn't need a creator or anything in order to be, but he can't just magically come into existence, which is an argument against this. Something must have created God. However, who's to say that God needed a cause? Based on our humanistic understanding of the universe, we believe that everything needs a reaction in order for something else to happen. It needs a cause. William Paley talked about the watch analogy. If we were walking in nature and saw a rock, we would think nothing of it. We would just assume that it was there for no specific reason, because rocks tend to be found in natural environments. However, if we found a watch in that same environment, we may give this a bit more attention. We would derive a few things from our experience of the watch. One, due to its complexities, we could almost be 100% certain that it had a designer. This links to the teleological argument for the existence of God. Basically, due to the complexity of the universe and apparent coherent natural patterns, this supports the idea that the universe had a designer. We may call this the uncaused cause or the unmoved mover. This is essentially God. However, who's to say that nature is not to have intrinsic patterns? Perhaps these apparent patterns are non-existent within objective reality or outside of the human perception. Perhaps if our brains were differently wired, we wouldn't see these patterns. But then my writing's getting really bad now. But then surely our brains must be highly developed to be able to see and interpret patterns, because it would seem silly or ignorant if we were to overlook these natural patterns, such as the seasons, tides, and the lunar cycles. They are all clearly here and happening as we can measure them with objects outside of ourselves, such as machines. However, we could also argue that humans created these machines, which were something ideas in the human mind. So perhaps we unconsciously created the machines in the image of ourselves, and we therefore have a bias to perceive the patterns which these machines may read. For example, time. We created time. It is circular, and it is based on the time it takes for the Earth to rotate around the sun. For that reason, time is subjective to our planet, in a sense, and to our universe. If there was life on other planets in other universes, they would most likely have different means of measuring the time. So does this make our perception of time wrong? Not necessarily. Time is still technically a thing, but time and space are relative. Time can't exist without space, just as space cannot exist without time. This is known as the theory of relativity, thought up by Einstein in the early 20th century. But then, arguably, we could go back to this idea that it is simply a human construct, something which we perceive in the mind, but then I guess we would have to ask the question, are things we perceive with the mind wrong, or are they in fact accurate? Well, let's go back and look at the Buddhist philosophy I talked about at the start of this piece of writing. I was saying that we are one with the universe. We are simply just a component of the bigger picture, which we call existence. We all came from the same matter, including our minds. This is hard to accept because the egoic mind likes to perceive a sense of superiority in humanity over other species, and more so in inanimate objects such as rocks or grains of sand. Doesn't make sense. When in fact all of these things came from the same essential elements which built up our universe over time. We are all from the same stuff, and nothing is more significant than anything else. From a scientific standpoint, we are biological organisms, but isn't everything aside from, of course, our human creations on Earth, such as buildings and machines? But even so, the core elements we derive from the universe in order to build these creations are completely natural. So when we strip everything back down to the to an atomic level, we can once again see the connectedness from the neurons in our brains to the particles in water and the oxygen we breathe. It is all part of the same process. We are all part of the same process, which is called existence. Existence is the only process. Debatably, though, it is not, says the human. What about pleasure and pain and things outside of empirical existence? Well, for a start, without existence, we would not be able to experience pleasure or pain, which are just institutions of existence. They are like sub-processes within the big process, but they are all one and the same within themselves. And let's look at things outside of empirical existence. This one is a little more difficult. I guess it could include things such as thoughts. Well, perhaps not, because we perceive thoughts with the senses, making them existent within empirical existence. How about certain light waves which humans are not able to perceive? Well, these things still exist, with or without the human experience, and even if they didn't exist, they would still have the capacity. Is there any such thing as something existing non-empirically? Yes, I guess there is, but perhaps we don't know about it. Because if we surely know about it, then our senses would perceive it and it would become empirical. I feel like the words I'm writing could go on forever. There is an infinite amount of things I could philosophize about by using circular arguments, which are generally discredited because they use the premise to define the outcome. I mean, they assume that the premises are true with no real proof. Also that the outcome is certain due to the premise. For example, the universe is complex. Complexity indicates design, therefore God created the universe. This is not really valid because not all complexities necessarily need a designer. It is based on assumptions, so this invalidates the claim. I feel like that's gonna stop recording. I'll put a little side note there, that bit about the circular arguments, because I'm not too sure about the accuracy of it, so yeah, don't take my word for that bit. Why do we assume that the designer is a male god? Why is the designer not a female god or a group of gods? Also, who designed God? God could have been an idea which became widespread after one or multiple humans came up with and chose to believe. I think it could have been anything. If a person said before the religious belief in God that a toad or even better, a giant spaghetti monster created the universe, then that is what we would call it. But then again, I guess it doesn't matter what we call it. But I think it is problematic to worship whatever may or may not have created the universe. One, because we don't know, and two, because we are it. Yeah. Going back to the interconnectedness of everything. Everything came from the same stuff. We are all it. Everything is it. We are confusing it with a bearded man in the sky and like to call him God. We are confused. God was created as an aspect of control within society, or perhaps someone understood what it was and wanted to categorize it. Perhaps he understood that everything was essentially God or the giant spaghetti monster. Then people saw this and decided to take advantage, or perhaps unintentionally got the wrong end of the stick. They interpreted it wrong, then started to worship this. This is where the adventure advantage was taken. Religion was formed, and people started to create rules around it, which were supposedly from the Lord Almighty. Really, they were just in place to control society and make people conform. This took away the freedom of humanity slowly, as did many other things, such as government and police and authority. But then, of course, we hit a moral dilemma. Debatably, some people need to be controlled, otherwise we would be in a state of constant anarchy and nothing in society would ever progress. Do we really need to progress? This is, again, a social construct. We are building this world upon fabricated principles, so we have to live by fabricated principles. We are no longer a natural species. We are genetically engineered and carry that X something, because we have taken control of nature itself, and we are able to manipulate it to suit our illusory needs. And then I put a little quote on there from an Alan Watts speech, which is, "The meaning of life is the smell of burnt almonds." And basically that comes from the fact that this guy, I think he was like a scientist, he was trying to induce an out-of-body experience or some sort of religious experience by administering doses of painkillers to himself, so that he could try and like reach the state. And when he reached it, he had a pen and paper, and after his experience, he looked down and that's what he'd written. So yeah, seems kind of incoherent, but I kind of liked it. I really need to piss, so I'm gonna have to go like now. Yeah, that's pretty much all of it. Yeah, that's all of it. Just like 17 minutes worth of thingy. Anyway, if you enjoyed watching, leave a like, comment anything down below, and yeah, bye.